Today, Kenya confronts the devastating reality of 2 lives lost to state violence in the span of just 2 weeks. Albert Ojwang, a blogger and online critic, died in police custody after being arrested for a social media post deemed derogatory against Deputy Inspector General of Police, ALAG, Boniface Kariuki. A 22-year-old mask vendor was shot in the head at point-blank range by Police Constable Klinzy Barasa during protests over Ojwang's death. Both men are now dead victims of a system that has declared war on its own citizens. The timeline tells a chilling story. Ojwang was arrested following a formal complaint by Deputy Police Chief Eliud Lagat about his social media activities. Within days, he was dead in custody at Central Police Station, spotty showing what authorities initially claimed were self-inflicted head injuries from hitting his head against the cell wall. The official narrative crumbled under scrutiny, and 6 police officers were on duty at the time of his death. One has been arrested and charged with murder, while 2 others remain at large. The protests that erupted after Ojwang's death brought Kenyans to the streets of Nairobi, demanding accountability for what they recognized as another extrajudicial killing. It was during these demonstrations on June 17th that Boniface Kariuki was selling face masks, protective equipment that protesters needed against police tear gas. Entrepreneurial instinct to meet market demand in dangerous conditions would cost him his life. The viral video of Kariuki's shooting shows the unthinkable: a masked police officer shooting an unarmed man in the head at close range as he walked away. There was no struggle, no resistance, no threat. Police constables Klinzy Barasa and Duncan Caprono were captured on camera as one manhandled the vendor while the other executed him on Moi Avenue. The officers then walked away, leaving Kariuki bleeding on the sidewalk. For 13 days, Kariuki fought for his life at Kenyatta National Hospital. The bullet that entered his head caused catastrophic brain damage that no medical intervention could repair. He died on June 30th, 2025, another casualty of Kenya's escalating police brutality. The medical bills from his treatment added financial devastation to his family's grief, a cruel burden for relatives already shattered by their loss. The shooting occurred just 2 weeks after Ojwang's death, creating a deadly cycle. Police kill a critic, citizens protest, police kill a protester. This pattern reveals the systematic nature of the violence plaguing Kenya's security forces. According to the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, 20 people have died in police custody in just the past 4 months. Ojwang and Kariuki represent not isolated incidents, but symptoms of a broader culture of impunity. Both police constables Klinzy Barasa and Duncan Caprono have been arrested and charged in connection with Kariuki's death. The case has been classified as murder, with investigations ongoing under IPOA case file. IPOA INV 518. 2025, the officers have been suspended from duty and are being processed by the Homicide Unit. Their lawyer initially withdrew from the case after receiving over 1,000 angry messages from outraged citizens. The circumstances surrounding Ojwang's death continue to fuel public anger. As a blogger who used his platform to criticize government officials, he exercised his constitutional right to free speech. His arrest for derogatory social media posts about Deputy Police Chief Lagat demonstrates how criticism of authority has been criminalized in Kenya. His wife, Nevnine Onyango, described how police officers were soft and not violent. When they came to arrest him, a deception that makes his subsequent death in custody all the more shocking. The protests that followed Ojwang's death spread beyond Nairobi to Mombasa, Kenya's second-largest city, showing how his killing resonated across the country. Young Kenyans, already frustrated by economic hardship and political repression, saw in Ojwang's death a symbol of their own vulnerability to state violence. The fact that he died for nothing more than expressing opinions online struck at the heart of democratic freedoms. Kariuki's death carries its own tragic symbolism. At 22, he represented the entrepreneurial spirit that Kenya desperately needs: a young man who saw opportunity in crisis, who brought masks to protesters knowing they would need protection from police tear gas. His ability to read the market, to provide essential services in dangerous conditions, should have been celebrated. Instead, it earned him a bullet to the head. The video evidence of Kariuki's shooting is so clear, so unambiguous, that it eliminates any possibility of police justification. An Associated Press photographer who witnessed the incident described it as one of the most shocking displays of police brutality he had ever seen. The images show a calculated execution, not crowd control gone wrong. The officer's face was concealed with a mask, suggesting premeditation rather than panic. Both deaths expose the fundamental contradiction at the heart of Kenya's governance. The state claims to protect democratic values while killing those who exercise democratic rights. It promises to foster economic growth while executing entrepreneurs. It speaks of law and order while operating outside the law entirely. The response from Kenya's leadership has been inadequate. Deputy Police Chief Lagat, whose complaint led to Ojwang's arrest, has stepped aside pending investigations. But this administrative action hardly addresses the systemic problems that enabled the killing. The arrest of individual officers, while necessary, does not reform the culture that produced their violence. The families of both men now face not just grief, but financial ruin. Ojwang's widow must navigate life without her husband's income, while dealing with the trauma of his violent death. Kariuki's family faces crushing medical bills from his failed treatment, adding economic devastation to their emotional loss. The state that killed these men offers no compensation, no acknowledgement, no justice, only more violence. The parallel tragedies reveal how quickly Kenya's security apparatus can escalate from silencing critics to killing protesters. Ojwang died for his words. Kariuki died for being present when others demanded accountability for those words. This progression from censorship to execution shows how authoritarianism metastasizes when left unchecked. The international community has taken notice. Reuters, CNN, The Washington Post, and other major outlets have covered both deaths, exposing Kenya's human rights crisis to global scrutiny. The viral nature of Kariuki's shooting video ensures that images of Kenyan police executing an unarmed citizen will be seen worldwide, damaging the country's international reputation. Yet domestic accountability remains elusive. While some officers face charges, the broader system that enabled their violence continues unchanged. The training that teaches officers to see citizens as enemies, the impunity that protects those who abuse power, the culture that rewards violence over dialogue, these foundational problems persist. The deaths of Ojwang and Kariuki mark a turning point in Kenya's relationship with its own people. Citizens can no longer assume that expressing opinions online is safe, that conducting business is protected, that being present at protests is survivable. The social contract between state and citizen has been violated so fundamentally that trust may be impossible to restore. As investigations continue and families mourn, Kenya faces a choice about what kind of nation it wants to become. The current path leads to more Albert Ojwangs and more Boniface Kariuki, more families destroyed, more communities traumatized, more young people convinced that their government sees them as enemies rather than citizens. The alternative requires fundamental reforms: accountability for police violence, protection for free speech, respect for the right to peaceful protest, and recognition that entrepreneurs like Kariuki represent Kenya's future rather than threats to be eliminated. It demands acknowledging that criticism of officials is not a crime worthy of death, that selling masks during protests is not a capital offense. Both men died believing in a Kenya that was better than the one that killed them. Ojwang believed in the power of words to create change, even when those words made powerful people uncomfortable. Kariuki believed in the dignity of honest work, even when that work took him into dangerous situations. Their faith in their country's potential was rewarded with violence. The test now is whether Kenya will honor their memory by becoming the nation they believed it could be, or whether it will continue down the path of state violence that claimed their lives. The choice belongs to all Kenyan citizens, who must decide whether to accept this violence as normal or demand the change that Ojwang and Kariuki died believing was possible. Their deaths were not inevitable. They were choices made by officers who valued their authority more than human life. By a system that protected those officers, by a society that tolerated such violence for too long. Different choices are still possible, but the window for making them peacefully is closing rapidly. As Kenya mourns Albert Ojwang and Boniface Kariuki, the question is not just who will be held accountable for their deaths, but whether their deaths will finally force the accountability that could prevent others from sharing their fate. The answer will determine not just the future of justice in Kenya, but the future of Kenya itself.